Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 483 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm changing my name.
To what?
I will let you know. I think I'm going to be...
Turd Ferguson? Did you ever see that skit with Burt Reynolds?
Yeah, it's good.
It cracks me up. I mean, first of all, because that's my last name. So
Yeah.
that I don't know why that just cracks. Any of those skits where Will Ferrell is playing Alex Trebek, those Jeopardy ones, they always cracked me.
It is. That was good stuff. I was just going to go be the podcaster formerly known as Gibby.
Okay.
You know, kind of like a spinoff of Prince.
Yeah, maybe go with a symbol or...
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to do the, fancy little, symbol.
Well, whenever you come up with it, we'll put it on your nameplate.
Until then, I'll remain Gibby, though.
Okay. All right, you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I am.
We're talking about Pearl Bruns. On August 11th, 1991, Pearl Bruns disappeared after an intense argument with her husband, who did not report her missing for several days. And that's always kind of a sticky situation.
It's not good.
No, it doesn't make you look good, right? And from the beginning, rightfully so, her husband was considered by police as the prime suspect.
Yeah.
But it took some time, right, to figure out who actually murdered her. Pearl Ann Drown was born on December 14th, 1943 in Bidford, Maine. She grew up in Saco and moved often as an adult. You ever been to Maine?
I have not been to Maine.
I'm not either. I have wanted to plan a trip up through the Northeast.
Yeah.
For a long time, but we just haven't done it.
Go there when the leaves are changing colors.
I don't care about no leaves. I want to get a lobster roll, some clam chowder, just try it.
Okay.
I'm more about the food, me.
All right. Well, you should plan that trip one of these days.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
We will. Pearl had 3 adult children, 2 daughters and a son from her previous marriages. In 1986, she married Bill Bruns and moved to South Portland, Maine. According to the Journal Tribune, it was Pearl's 6th marriage and Bill's 4th.
Wow.
That's
a lot of marriages.
I mean, that's 2 people who were looking for love multiple times.
Yeah.
And obviously, the situations that they were in didn't work out for one reason or another.
I mean, that's...
But they didn't give up. You'd have to say that.
6 times. My one aunt was married 5 times. And I was like, how do you do that? How do you do that?
Well, you just stand up in front of a preacher or you go down to the clerk. Oh, you mean like, how do you do it emotionally?
Yes.
Or
that's just I don't know. It seems like a lot.
Yeah, I tell my wife all the time. Well, first of all, I tell her my next wife's not going to treat me like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't go over well.
You say my next wife won't be like my current wife.
No, but no, I've told her, I don't think I would get married again.
Yeah.
I really don't. I love being married, but, and that could change, if you met someone and, if, God forbid something happened to my wife.
I'm glad you went that direction. Because I was like, wait a minute, where's he going with this?
No, I love being married, but
Sure
I don't know if I would do it again. I really don't.
Because nobody can ever compare it to your wife is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Let's go that route.
Yeah.
Because
she's listening.
Yeah, she'll hear me editing this.
Right.
So Bill owned Belco Trucking, which transported fish products.
Okay. Well, they are in Maine.
Yeah, they're in Maine. Might be a little smelly. The 2 met at their local VFW, where Pearl enjoyed spending her free time. At first, they seemed happy and said they were lucky in love. Now, did they say that with all their previous marriages as well? Probably.
I'm assuming there's a good odds that they said at least 1 or 2 of those marriages.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. Nobody goes into a marriage thinking, oh, no, this ain't going to work. Because why would you get married?
Well, that's true.
Everybody's happy. And then there's a honeymoon period. Sometimes that lasts for a very long time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't, if you're a celebrity, it could be like 70 days. That's all those celebrity marriages last sometimes.
There's potential that maybe it only lasts one night as a true honeymoon night.
That's
That's
true.
it. It's over.
especially if you don't know each other's names and you met in Vegas or something like that. For many years, Pearl worked as a certified nurse's assistant and activities director at the Elms residence home. Most recently, before her disappearance, she worked as a fish packer at Stinson Seafood in South Portland.
All right. Well, someone's got to pack that fish.
I mean, I get it, right? You just said they're in Maine.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of jobs that kind of revolve around the fishing industry? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of people make their livelihood in that way. But, you know, I talked about this honeymoon period. I don't think it was all that long that their marriage started to deteriorate. According to Pearl's friend, Deanna Sir, they were constantly fighting. Pearl started drinking more and became depressed. She also told Deanna, per the Southern Maine Community College Beacon, "There's one thing I want you to know. If anything should ever happen to me, tell them Bill did it."
It's always alarming.
It is. And it's not the first case that we have talked about this, where someone has said, hey, if anything ever happens to me, my wife, my husband, my significant other most likely did it.
Yeah.
And my thought is always the same. If you think that way, what are you still doing in this relationship?
And it's not like she's in this relationship for a long time already.
Yeah, I don't know how long they were actually married before it started to go downhill, but they were no stranger, either one of them, to getting divorced.
Right.
So, I mean, if you seriously thought your partner was potentially going to hurt or kill you, that seems like a pretty good reason to get out of a relationship.
Yeah, I'd say go ahead and exit now instead of waiting until that moment comes around.
Pearl's daughter, Elaine, was aware that the couple fought often. When he was angry, Bill would sometimes throw things, or he would rip the phone out of the wall. But as far as she knew, it didn't go beyond that. And so I'm taking that to mean, as far as Pearl's daughter knew, it never got physical.
Yeah.
Right? He got upset. He threw tantrums. He threw things around the house, but she never saw him strike her or be physical with her. But as we've said, right? If you're not living there day in and day out, and sometimes even if you are, do you know everything that happens behind closed doors?
No, but who would want to live in that environment though? I mean,
throwing things, ripping phones out of the wall.
I mean, come on. You know, how old are you? You got to rip the phone out of the wall because you're upset because somebody called or I called somebody or what, you know? Mm-hmm. Ripping the phone out of the wall.
Yeah, I'm assuming that happens a lot less these days. Maybe they just take your phone and stomp on it, your cell phone, because a lot of people are getting rid of their landlines. We haven't had a landline here in many, many years.
Same here. I haven't had a landline since, I can't even tell you the last time I had a landline.
Family friend Judy Dickinson spoke to Pearl in June 1991. She recalled to the Biddeford Journal-Tribune she wasn't happy. She told me that she had been drinking a lot. When I asked her why, she said she didn't know. I said a lot of times it's because people are unhappy, and she said, "How'd you get so smart?" So a couple, maybe tongue in cheek, but also maybe she is saying it without saying it. You're hitting the nail on the head, right? Yeah. I'm not happy. That's why I'm drinking. Dickinson said Pearl didn't talk much about Bill and had expressed interest in improving her life. And I'm taking that to mean life without Bill would be an improvement.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like life with Bill's dragging her down. Right?
I think that's what she was trying to relate to, other people.
Yeah.
On August 11th, 1991, Bill and Pearl got into a heated argument about money. Bill claimed that he grabbed his keys and left the house for a couple of hours. When he returned, Pearl was gone. He went to bed, assuming Pearl was at the VFW or perhaps somewhere else in town. And so let's break down that scenario, right? People get into arguments, right? Couples get into arguments. It happens.
It does.
Now, this one was about money, which is probably one of the main things that most couples fight about.
I would say it's got to be, if not the number one thing, then it's got to be right on the heels of the number one thing.
And I would think for you, as cheap as you are, it probably is number one.
I argue with myself every day. Mike, what are you doing?
Don't buy that $1 cup of coffee at McDonald's.
That's
you can't. We cannot afford that.
You can get it cheaper. You know you can. Look around. Drive around a little bit longer.
But then you have this scenario, right, where one person leaves the house, in this case, Bill, after the argument. He comes home and Pearl's not there. Okay, what does he think? Well, she left too.
Yeah.
I went to go cool off. She left to go cool off. She's probably at the VFW, if not somewhere else in town.
Sure.
So maybe because of that, Pearl wasn't reported missing until August 13th. But even then, she wasn't reported by Bill. She was reported by her daughter, Elaine. And Bill hadn't even said anything to Elaine.
Yeah.
It was really just Elaine kind of knowing in her heart that something was wrong.
I mean, I get it. If you have a spout with your wife and, you come home, she's not home, but you think, well, she's just down at the VFW, probably drinking. She'll get home eventually. I'm going to go ahead and go to bed. But when you wake up and she's not there, normally should be like, hey, I need to figure out what happened to her.
Well, and especially if more than one day goes by.
Yeah.
Because that would be out of character for most people. And it was for Pearl as well. She had a pretty steady routine.
Right.
She liked to get her daily coffee. She liked to get her lottery ticket from the local Quick Mart. And she liked to drink at the VFW. So I think she was a regular there. She also talked to her daughter, Elaine, several times a day. But Elaine hadn't heard from her.
And to me, these are all red flags.
Yeah, and both unsolved and TCAT cases, we talk a lot about people's patterns, right? When they go missing. I think patterns really matter a lot because let's face it, most of us are, creatures of habit. We like our routines.
We are.
Yeah, I do the same thing every day. I get up, I have to make my coffee, start to drink my coffee before I do anything else.
Yeah.
I don't want to take on any tasks. I don't want to talk to anybody on the phone.
Yeah, that is 100% true.
Yeah. Even when we go to like CrimeCon and stuff, I need to get my coffee.
You need to be left alone.
Because I'm not fun. I'm not a good, nice person to be around until I get a little bit of pick-me-up, a little caffeine.
Yeah. And then, at that point, you're just, all type of fun to be around.
Oh, even then, I'm just so-so.
Yeah.
But, Elaine noticed something unusual when she went to the house to check on her mom. She told the Journal Tribune, "My mom used to buy a newspaper every morning. This was Tuesday, and the last paper in the house was from Sunday."
Well, okay, that's a tell. That's a TT sign.
Yeah, we all know what you mean. So, Elaine called the police, and Detective Linda Barker came to the house to talk to her. Detective Barker walked through the house and found all of Pearl's belongings, including her beloved Cadillac, still there. And again, something that always crops up in these cases. People seemingly leave, right? Or we would say disappear, but you don't know at that point. What makes it seem more likely than not that they just didn't willingly leave is that they leave a bunch of stuff behind that most people would take.
Yeah.
If they were just going to up and leave.
Just doesn't make any sense.
No. Now I can see a woman wanting to just get away from her husband.
Yeah.
But you don't call your daughter? My wife and her mom talk at least once a day, if not multiple times a day.
Well, and like you said, that's what they did. Multiple times throughout the day, they would have conversations. To go from that down to zero?
Yeah.
And
you're going to leave and not take your car, this Cadillac that
Right.
she loved, I guess.
Wasn't like it was a Ford Fiesta.
No, things just, they just don't make sense.
Right.
Right. And when things don't make sense in a case, there's usually a reason why.
Sure.
And detectives are, they're not dumb. They can see all of that stuff as well. On the bedroom floor was a partially packed suitcase, which had a light amount of blood spatter on it. There was also light blood spatter on the bureau and sink. So, okay, what do we make of that? Sounds like maybe Pearl was in the process of packing to leave. Something happened because we got blood spatter.
What does that mean? Right? We don't know what.
That somebody was bloody. Or,
yeah, but we just don't know.
Or had a wound.
To the extent.
Yeah, we don't know what the extent was. Detective Barker asked Elaine if there were any other places they hadn't looked. Elaine took her outside to the entrance to the cellar, and Barker saw what appeared to be bloodstains on the stairs leading down. I mean, I'm thinking if you're this detective, you're starting to get really worried.
Yeah. I think all your spidey senses are going off.
Mm-hmm. You say senses? Because I have a Sensi. I think it's plugged into this wall right here.
It puts out a spidey scent.
Sensi. You crack me up, man. But, I'm just thinking, I'm not a detective, but if I was, okay, I got some blood spatter here in the house. Now I'm seeing it leading down into the cellar. I'm starting to think to myself, I might find something not so good.
Exactly.
If I go down into this cellar.
I think we're on the trail of something.
Yeah. And it was said that it was roughly around a 500 square foot cellar.
Okay.
And when she got down there, the detective, she found a cement floor and an opening that led to a dirt crawl space. Some of the soil looked like it had been disturbed. She called for backup to bring shovels.
We're going to do some digging.
Yeah. First of all, there's a few things I don't like. I'm not big on cellars.
Yeah.
I'm not big on crawl spaces.
Most people aren't.
Mainly because of John Wayne Gacy. He messed up crawl spaces for everybody.
He ruined it.
But, I don't know what this exactly looked like, but I'm picturing like scary movie type stuff here.
Yeah.
Like this is not, you're not walking down into someone's finished basement, right? You're walking into a cellar. When you say cellar, it kind of denotes a certain atmosphere.
I'm picturing spider webs and...
What's up with you and spiders today? Spidey Sensi? We got all kinds of stuff. So detectives got down there and they dug up the crawl space, but they didn't find anything. The South Portland police chief declined at the time to call in homicide investigators from the state police and declared Pearl a missing person. And it was the following day after all this happened that Bill finally reported his wife missing.
Okay. Seems like a little bit late.
It does. But I also want to go back and I'm like, okay, so the police chief doesn't want to call in homicide investigators.
Yeah.
Why? Maybe it was the amount of blood spatter. They just didn't think it was significant enough to kind of lean homicide. Again, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem good. Is it possible somebody cuts themselves? Yeah, absolutely. But most people don't just leave it there. Or, you're dripping on a suitcase into the bathroom and then down in the cellar. Okay, that, again, it's not all adding up to me.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, right, the police chief just didn't feel it was warranted enough to make that call.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't really much explanation as to why. Now, Bill explained that he waited because Pearl would sometimes leave home for 2 to 4 days at a time to stay with a relative, but she always came back. And he did admit that they had an argument before she went missing.
Okay, I mean, if that's the case, I get it. You know, if it's something that happened frequently, kind of surprised though that he wouldn't have said something to her daughter. Like,
Yeah,
hey,
Elaine.
we got in one of those fights again. Your mom probably went to old Aunt Betsy's for a couple of days, and
Yeah.
you know, hopefully she'll be back soon.
Yeah, I think he has to explain, right, why he didn't report his wife missing until a number of days later. That's going to be a question that detectives are going to ask him. Bill remained the primary suspect for Detective Linda Barker, but her superiors thought that Pearl ran off with an ex-husband. And she did have 5 of them.
Well, that's
so I don't know which one they thought it was.
Yeah.
Now, they did think it was concerning that Pearl didn't tell her children, right, that she was leaving. And we touched on that, especially Elaine, because, I mean, a lot of the reporting did center around Elaine and their relationship, but she had other children as well. And it was said she was in regular contact with all of them, and she enjoyed spending time with them. So it wasn't like, you know, they were estranged.
right.
Because that would be a different situation.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, if she didn't typically talk to, you know, Elaine or any of her kids for periods of time,
Yeah.
then that would make sense. But that's not the case here.
Right. So it seems even that much more strange, right? That she's not contacted any of them, even if she was going to do this thing where, as her husband said, go to a relative for a few days and stay, maybe decompress after the argument and come back.
Yeah.
You would still think she would talk to one or if not all of her children and just say, hey, want to let you know I'm at Aunt Betsy's.
Right.
I got my spidey senses and I'm good to go. But that lack of communication to me just really jumps out.
Yeah.
You know, in some of these cases. Over the next few weeks, Detective Barker pursued every avenue, but there wasn't a whole lot to be done. She eventually told Elaine that her hands were tied. Elaine could tell that Barker was frustrated with how the investigation was progressing. And you know, it's something we don't talk about a lot, but I think it would be very frustrating to be a detective because we know they don't solve every case.
No.
So there's ones that drag on and they're not solved. I mean, I would imagine there's a great deal of frustration there.
I wonder if they, you know, have like yearly reviews and they have like, you know, baseball players have batting averages.
Well, I'm sure they have clearance rates and things like that.
Oh, yeah. I wonder how.
I don't know if their raises and things are affected by that. Probably.
Would seem like a little bit unfair though too, right? I mean, you can only, unless you're not a really good detective.
Yeah. I mean, if it was 10% and everybody else's was 80,
Yeah.
then yeah, we're going to have to let you go. I mean, you're
not,
all you're doing is sitting around eating donuts. You're not clearing any cases. But I do understand what you're saying. It's not like some jobs or a lot of jobs where you can get the job done.
right.
There are some cases that just can't be solved.
As we know, because we do many of them.
Yeah. Detective Patrick Lehan also believed that Bill was the suspect. Lieutenant Detective Michael Harriman agreed that Bill was matter of fact when answering questions. When the detectives expressed their worry that things had gotten out of hand and something happened to Pearl, Bill maintained that he would not hurt his wife. Okay, well, what's he going to say? Right? I always kind of look at that. I mean, is he going to say, yeah, I'm the kind of guy who, if it went too far, I'd probably hurt her.
Yeah.
No.
It's not ever going to happen.
Guys, people aren't going to say that. Detective Lehan noted that Bill said, I would never hurt my Pearlie. I loved her so much. And that's when he began to question his use of, past tense.
It's a little strange to say.
It is. And I think some people trip themselves up with that.
Right.
Right? Present tense, past tense. We don't know at this point what has happened to Pearl. Bill says he doesn't know. He didn't hurt her. So why in the world is he using the word loved?
Right.
And not love? It could be a real, as you would say, telltale, whatever sign. TT.
TT. It's a TT sign.
It's a TT sign. On August 28, 1991, Elaine called WMTW8, Channel 8. She spoke to reporter Christine Young and shared more information about the case, such as the blood on the suitcase and cellar stairs. Young called an assistant attorney general. She recalled that when she told him the situation, he uttered a profanity.
Oh.
And very quickly, the state police got involved in the investigation.
Okay.
So for me, this kind of goes back to what was the police chief saying, yeah, we don't need, homicide investigators to get involved. Now we have the assistant attorney general kind of hearing about this and saying, what is going on? We need somebody to look into this, because I think he's viewing it kind of how we were, which is, hey, you've got blood spatter in different areas and down in the cellar. To me, at the very least, it warrants kind of a homicide type investigation.
Sure. And so use those state resources and let's, look at that.
Yeah. On September 28th, 1991, a hiker in the White Mountains near Carroll, New Hampshire, found Pearl's purse. This is about 200 miles from her home.
It's a healthy hike.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, close really at all. Inside the purse was her driver's license, her pocketbook with cash inside, several loose diamonds, and more blood spatter.
I mean, who carries loose diamonds anymore?
Maybe somebody trying to get away from a very, very bad relationship.
That's true. They're, exchangeable for a good amount of money.
Yeah. I'll take your word for that.
Been a while, but yeah.
I've never fenced loose diamonds as you have.
Not as easy as you think it is.
No, I'm sure it's not.
Yeah.
Investigators noted that the area where Pearl's purse was found was close to Bill's trucking route, which to them kind of raised two possibilities.
Yeah.
Bill left the purse there as a red herring, or he dumped both the purse and Pearl's body in the woods.
And I'm just thinking, well, why would she have these diamonds, or if it was him, why would he place those diamonds there? But I'm thinking, what if she was planning to leave? Mm-hmm. He came home, did what he did, and she already had those loose diamonds on her as a form of, as you mentioned, as currency to use at a later time.
Yeah. I mean, the suitcase kind of made me think, well, maybe she was packing up.
Yeah.
But the suitcase is still there, right? She didn't take it. There's blood spatter on it. She didn't take her Cadillac, so it doesn't really seem as though she left on her own.
Yeah.
But it could be that she was in the process, and maybe somebody, possibly even Bill, saw it, came home, whatever, and got upset. On November 21st, 1991, state and local police set up a command post at Pearl and Bill's residence. A search dog was brought into the cellar and alerted to the scent of human decomposition. Police dug again, but again, they didn't find anything.
So bizarre.
It is, especially now, because at first we had the disturbed soil in the crawl space.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would look at that and say, okay, why is the soil disturbed other than somebody's been digging and putting something down there? And now you have the dog hitting, but they're still not finding anything.
But
go ahead.
No, sorry. I was thinking, when they went and looked prior to this, maybe that was enough concern for the person, him, if he did have her in that crawl space, to remove her.
Yeah, and that's exactly what investigators started to believe. right? That perhaps Bill had hidden her body in the cellar initially, but then decided to move it. Detectives brought Bill in for questioning, but he maintained his story that Pearl was gone when he arrived home, and he never noticed any blood in the house. And I think, yeah, I mean, you have to weigh that, right, on the plausibility meter. Did he not go into that room? Did he not go into that bathroom? Because most people are going to see that stuff.
Sure they are.
According to an affidavit on the November search, Detective Lehan told Bill that he thought he killed his wife. Detective Lehan wrote, "While I said this to him, he was nodding his head in the affirmative. And then I asked him, 'Am I wrong?' And he replied, 'I just don't know.'" Which is, to me, one of the strangest replies to that question that someone could ever have.
It really is.
First, now I get it. Some people just nod their head when other people are talking.
Yeah.
Even if it's like something that they're not agreeing to, it's just maybe a habit.
Like acknowledging what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when, if you're a detective, right, and you bring me in, you're questioning me,
Right.
and you say, "I think you killed your wife." Am I right? And what do I say? No, hell no, you're not right.
Exactly.
I didn't do anything to my wife. I would never hurt my wife. What I wouldn't say is, I don't know.
That doesn't make any sense to say that.
I mean, I don't expect people to admit to it because most people don't. But this "I don't know" type of answer is like, how could you not know? You either killed your wife, did something to your wife, or you didn't.
It's like saying no contest in front of the judge, right? Do you plead innocent, guilty? No contest. You figure it out. What do you think?
No, doesn't no contest mean you're guilty?
Well, I guess.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not the master of spidey senses, but apparently you are. I'm pretty sure when you plead no contest, that means you're guilty. You're not contesting it.
I go neutral. I'm neutral, Judge. Neutral. I don't know. You figure it out.
You are a true crime podcaster, right?
I am.
I'm just checking.
Formerly known as Gibby.
I'm just checking. But I mean, I don't think there's any doubt, right, that Bill is suspect number one.
Oh, absolutely.
And first of all, how could he not be? He is the husband. So even if they wouldn't call him a suspect, he's going to be the first person looked at. They're going to have to vet him and either rule him in or out. Pretty hard to rule him out based on all the things we know so far.
No, I don't think you're checking that box off yet.
No. When you answer, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're not ruling yourself out. Despite all of this, on November 25th, the Maine Department of Public Safety spokesman Stephen McLaughlin said state police were not treating the case as a homicide. This kind of blows me away.
Yeah.
I get it. They might not have at that moment, right, the type of evidence where they could conclusively say this is in fact a homicide, but it just seems to me that why wouldn't you treat it as such, given what we know,
Right.
and do the investigation the way you would in a homicide case? If it turns out not to be a homicide, no harm, no foul, right?
Well, true.
But I think the other way around, you can cause irreparable harm.
Yeah, we've seen that.
In cases.
Yeah.
You don't treat it as a homicide. You treat it more as an accident or the person just up and left. Later on, years down the road, it turns out it was a homicide, but you have less to work with because you didn't do all the things you would have normally.
Yeah. Yep. I don't want to say they got, at that point, they're lazy on it, but it kind of feels like that, right? Why wouldn't you want to do all your due diligence?
Yeah, I just think it's strange to me to say, no, we don't want, homicide investigators, or, now they're saying even the state police. We're just, at this point, we're not treating it as a homicide. Also on the 25th, New Hampshire state troopers brought a search dog to the hiking trail where Pearl's purse was found. but discovered nothing.
Hmm.
And it was kind of a long time between the purse being found and them making the decision to bring the dog out.
Yeah.
They were questioned about it, but they declined to say why they waited so long to search this area.
Yeah. Sometimes I think if you wait too long, it just doesn't do any good.
Well, let's go back to your theory. Is it possible that she was in the cellar but later moved? Is it possible that if her killer knew that they found the purse, that person thought, uh-oh, they're close to where I buried the body.
Yeah.
They go out and get the body and bury it somewhere else. Possible.
Very possible.
A few days later, Pearl's daughter, Elaine Woodward, spoke to the Journal Tribune, expressing her belief that police mishandled the investigation, causing delays that may have prevented the case from being solved early on. Elaine couldn't understand why the police didn't share her belief that Pearl was dead, saying, I felt like the police were brushing me off when I knew so many things were wrong.
I mean, I feel like she's getting frustrated.
Well, and let's face it, in a lot of the cases that we do, family, they're often frustrated with the police.
Right.
Number one, because maybe they're not getting as many updates as they think they should be getting. They don't know everything the police is doing, but they don't think they're doing enough, right? That's pretty common, I think, on the part of family members. But in this one, I can kind of see where the frustration comes from.
Yeah.
It's not like it comes out of thin air. The signs to me are pointing to at least it being more likely than not that there's some sort of foul play involved here. So when you're not treating it that way, yeah, I think the family's going to be frustrated.
Yeah.
Elaine claimed that Police Chief Robert Schwartz told her the mere fact someone is missing does not mean that there is any foul play. And that's an absolutely true statement. The problem I have with that statement is it's not just the mere fact that she's missing. Add in, she didn't take her car. Why is her purse found in the woods? Why is the blood spatter found? It's you have to take it all into consideration.
Add it all up and see what you have.
Yeah, so I think that statement is, while true, it's misleading in the case.
Yeah.
With the circumstances we've talked about. Elaine also noted that an investigating officer, quote, told me point blank that with a trail of blood like that, without a pool of blood or a body at the end of the trail, the blood means absolutely nothing. And I have a problem with that as well.
Yep.
Does it mean that she was hurt or killed? No, not necessarily. Like I said, she could have maybe cut herself.
Could have.
Walked around, maybe even gone down in the cellar. Maybe she didn't know that she'd cut herself and was dripping blood. But to say that it means absolutely nothing in conjunction with somebody disappearing, their purse being found, I think that's a little off base as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've cut myself pretty good shaving,
Mm-hmm.
Bled for a little bit, and
Yeah.
can't get it to stop. So face, manscaped,
I was
whatever.
going to say, and that's not even to mention like shaving your face. On December 30th, 1991, police publicly acknowledged that Pearl may have been murdered. So it did really take them a little bit.
It did.
Right? To at least acknowledge the fact that she may have been murdered. Detectives returned to the house with the search warrant, and they spent 8 hours looking for evidence. Investigators sprayed luminol throughout the house, which revealed a trail of blood.
I'm sure it did.
So, but, it all goes back to kind of this point of why not treat this as a homicide investigation from the very beginning? Because then you're probably doing the luminol test very early on.
And you'd be much further along in this case.
Absolutely. Inside the cellar was an imprint of blood that was approximately the same length of Pearl's body, indicating that at some point it was resting there, possibly while someone was digging. So they questioned Bill again that night. He was informed that blood was found throughout the house, but again, he said he didn't recall seeing any blood. And now it's not just a few droplets or some spatter.
Yeah.
This is a trail of blood. So you either didn't go anywhere near where this trail was, or you're just oblivious, or you're lying.
Yeah.
There's really only about 3 different scenarios in play here. He maintained that on August 11th, he left to get dinner, and Pearl didn't want to go. He went to Dunkin' Donuts and then came home. Pearl wasn't there when he returned. He insisted he didn't know what happened to her. Now, I love Dunkin' Donuts as much as the next person, but I don't normally eat dinner at Dunkin'.
No.
They have like dinner?
I think donuts.
I mean, I know they make a bunch of different specialty drinks because that's what my kids are always going there for, specialty coffee drinks. Obviously, they have donuts.
I think they might have like maybe some Danish for type of sandwiches or something like that.
I would think if they have sandwiches, it's probably breakfast sandwiches. But
I think so too.
It just doesn't seem like a dinner spot. But hey, maybe, he wanted donuts for dinner. More power to him.
I always went to Dunkin' to get those little donut holes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I went there for. That's it.
You're a donut hole guy?
Yeah.
I'm more of a Krispy Kremer.
Are you?
If I can get them.
Yeah.
With the light on, there ain't nothing better.
I like the ones that you can just, pick up that ball and just pop it in your mouth and go. Good.
You're heading down a really...
I was worried there.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows. I'm
going to leave it alone.
I like the chocolate glazed donut too.
That's where you lost me. Now, you and my wife, 2 peas in a pod. But
Yeah.
I'm a glazed. I don't like chocolate as much as
Really?
most people do.
I mean, I like the glaze, but I really love the...
Like even chocolate cake. It's not my favorite.
No, you
I would
like
rather
that?
have like a vanilla or...
Yeah. How about
something
pie?
like that.
You a pie guy?
I do like pie.
Yeah.
Not chocolate pie. Oh. But so that struck me as strange. But I mean, if you're going to lie about something, that seems like a strange thing to lie about.
It sure does.
You could have picked something different. Maybe he just wanted donuts for dinner. I don't know.
Yeah.
Despite the luminol evidence, prosecutors still felt they needed to find Pearl's body to support a murder charge. In January 1992, police searched the area across I-95 from the Bruns household with a specially trained dog, but nothing came of this search. On September 11th, 1992, 13 months after Pearl went missing, police searched the house again, focusing on the cellar. And why wouldn't you, right, Gibbs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes good sense.
That something happened in that cellar.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what it was.
I mean, it's a reoccurring place to visit.
Well, I thought about that when there was blood spatter.
Yeah.
Now we find out that there was blood the length of her body as though she had been resting there at some point, most likely while someone was digging a hole to put her into.
Yeah, and
in
the
crawl
dog hit
space.
there too, right?
Yeah.
So,
And the dog hit there. But this time, investigators brought in a geophysicist who used ground penetrating radar, and they detected an anomaly in the crawl space. And that ground penetrating radar is used quite a bit. This technology, though, fascinates.
sure is.
I mean, technology in general, but especially as it relates to the world of true crime and cases. Obviously, you got the DNA and that type of forensic stuff, but you also have things like, ground penetrating radar, just to be able to see, and they use it for stuff other than true crime, but to be able to see what's under there without first jackhammering or digging it up.
Yeah, so you're not destroying the whole area. You're like, okay, let's do this and see if we can find a void that makes sense for us to dig in.
Because how many cases have we done where a wife has gone missing and it turns out that the husband poured a patio right after that.
Conveniently.
But, can you just go and dig people's patios up if you're not sure? No, but could you run a machine over it and maybe tell if there's something under there?
Yeah,
possibly.
Saves the county or city some money
from having to replace it
if you didn't need to tear it up.
Yeah. Police only had to dig up a couple of shovelfuls of dirt before they hit something. It was a head wrapped in a garbage bag. The body was wrapped in bags and buried under just about a foot of soil. The victim was immediately identified as Pearl Bruns based on her shoes and monogrammed watch.
It makes you wonder how they missed it.
Exactly. It's almost shocking.
Yeah.
Right? They were down there multiple times. You mentioned it, right? The dog hid down there. Yeah. They searched the crawl space, but they couldn't find her, and she's only under about a foot of dirt.
Unless she was moved, brought back.
Yeah, I get that. It's possible.
Yeah.
Bill was arrested in his kitchen while he was eating spaghetti. Okay. He insisted that he be allowed to finish his meal.
Yeah. Let me finish my spaghetti, then I'll get to you guys, okay?
But they ignored his demand.
I'm sure they did. They probably like, no, you're going to go with us right now.
Put that damn meatball down and put your hands behind your back. Many people question why it took investigators so long, right, to find Pearl if she had been in the cellar the whole time. Kind of the question that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
The Journal Tribune reported that the cellar was as wide as the house, but the crawl space was only about 3 feet high. And that's right. Crawl spaces are usually cramped.
Yeah.
That's why they call them crawl.
Yeah. You're normally on your hands and knees if you're in them.
That's why I don't like them.
Yeah.
Not getting under there. Could be all kinds of animals and raccoon, skunk. I'm not messing with no raccoon.
Spiders.
Spidey sense or Sensey.
Yeah.
That's going to go down in history because
I'm sure you won't let me forget it.
No,
I know that.
And other people won't either. Yeah. According to State Police Sergeant Michael Harriman, it would have been impossible to dig up the whole cellar by hand, and they were faced with removing the house from the foundation and excavating or just isolating a particular area and digging. So I think maybe that helps kind of say or make it a little more reasonable as to why police didn't find her body beforehand, right?
Right.
This crawl space, although not very tall, it's as wide as the house.
Yeah, it's a pretty good area to cover.
So there's quite a bit of dirt there. And they probably did do some digging, but never found her the first few times or whatever. But you could see why people would question it. I get that. At Bill's arraignment, it was announced that Pearl had been struck in the head 3 times by a fist, causing her to bleed to death. Specifically, she died from blood loss from fractures to the nose and left side of the face.
Pretty powerful punch.
Yeah. I mean, vicious, right? Most of the time, we're talking about blunt force trauma, but from some type of object. This is blunt force trauma solely from this man's hand.
Yeah.
And he killed her.
Pretty powerful hit.
Sounds like it. She suffered a fracture of the left orbital bone. Orbital bone.
Going to correct you, but I didn't want to do it in front of everybody.
Well, you can. Makes it seem like you didn't catch it when you don't. It was said if treated, this injury would probably not have been fatal. Prosecutors believe that the argument between Pearl and Bill got physical. She was likely knocked unconscious when he hit her and left her to bleed to death. Medical records also showed that Pearl had been recently diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she actually had less than 6 months to live.
Really?
Police Chief Robert Schwartz defended the investigation and said his department, quote, did everything possible. However, 2 state police investigators said the first observations of bloodstains at the home could have intensified suspicions earlier in the case. And I don't know how someone couldn't agree with that. You've got bloodstains. Maybe we should treat this as a homicide investigation.
Yeah, that's kind of burnt you this whole episode.
It has.
You know?
It has, because we've seen it so often. Why not err on that side? Because for me, there's really no downside other than more work. But if you go the other way, there are ramifications.
Yeah.
Negative
that's true.
ramifications. Schwartz noted that a detective was assigned to the case full time before state police took over in the late fall, and the blood found in the home was a couple of blood drippings. That's all. So you've got 2 sides to the story.
Sure.
He added there was not copious amounts of blood that anyone would suspect was any more than cutting your finger or a bloody nose. It wasn't a puddle of blood. But there was a puddle of blood.
Well, yeah.
A trail of blood. They just couldn't see it. Right? If they had gone just a step further and done the luminol earlier,
then they could have put that picture together.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I get both sides of it, but I'm sticking with my assertion that they could have erred on the side of foul play. And something wasn't right there. State Police Sergeant Michael Harriman said he didn't want to discredit the local police, but when assessing the initial handling of the case, he said, certainly blood found at the scene should raise suspicion. A determination of where the blood came from is important. It's a judgment call on the part of the police department. And I get that. I think what he's saying is they just made the wrong judgment call. Chief Schwartz maintained there was no reason to suspect foul play in the beginning. He said, if you look at this logically, you've got a woman who was divorced a few times, a woman with alcohol problems. She's left before. She has another daughter in Florida. Who's to say she wasn't just leaving him? They had money problems.
I mean, it's possible.
It's possible. There's also some victim blaming there, though, too, right? He's trying to cover his ass, but at the same time, kind of blaming the victim, right? She's been married a bunch of times. She's got problems with alcohol.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that mean that you shouldn't have done a little bit more investigating? I don't think so.
Are you saying because she's a divorcee and a 5-time divorcee and an alcoholic that we really shouldn't put the effort behind it?
Yeah. Making the assumption that somebody ran away. I think that's part of the problem. On April 4th, 1994, Bill Bruns agreed to plead guilty to manslaughter because a jury would have convicted him of the same charge, according to his lawyer. Before trial, prosecutors acknowledged much of the evidence was circumstantial, but it all pointed to Bill. And I get the circumstantial evidence part, but, you know, when the victim is found in your crawl space.
Yeah.
In bags.
Not good.
That's a lot of circumstantial evidence.
That's pretty strong evidence.
Yeah, it's gonna sway the jury, I think, pretty heavily.
I think so.
On September 30th, 1994, Bill was sentenced to 15 years in prison. The Journal-Tribune reported that the events surrounding Pearl's death remained a mystery. The judge also noted that Bill had not chosen to reveal the circumstances behind Pearl's death. The defense read a statement on Bill's behalf, expressing his regret. He wrote, "I never intended for any of this to happen. I loved Pearl and I miss her very much." And that could be true, right? This could have been a crime of passion or a heat of the moment thing.
Could have been.
That got out of control, but he still did kill her.
Yeah.
And by the sounds of it, if treated, she would have lived. So there's that factor as well. He just didn't get her help.
Because he didn't care.
I don't know what the answer is because he hasn't said. Bill was 63 at the time of sentencing. taking into account 2 years he had already served and time for good behavior, Bill was likely to be released by the time he turned 71. But couldn't really find too much out about Bill.
Kind of a man of mystery.
Yeah. I mean, that was what, 30 years ago? So obviously Bill's not alive probably at this point.
Pretty doubtful.
He would be, 90 some years old. He could be alive,
Could
but
be. Most likely not.
But 15 years in prison, I get it. It was manslaughter. And it could very well have been, as we wrap this one up, that he didn't mean to kill her, but he did kill her. And, his actions killed her. So
exactly.
you got to live with that. And you got to pay the price for that.
You do need to pay the price.
But that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time.
Okay.
You got anything you want to say?
No, that we just love you guys.
Yep. We love you as always. And we'll come back at you next week with a brand new episode.
Yeah.
So until then, for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.